Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I am going to be reacting to a video called Why Do Scottish Men Wear Kilts? This is from a channel called Scotland Unplugged, so check it out. I have to admit I've always asked this question myself, but I never really knew the answer, so I guess we'll find out. So let's check it out and comment, like and subscribe.
This is a famous writer. This is his monument.
Who's this guy?
And this is a slightly middle-aged guy trying to get into his kilt.
Is it hard?
It's definitely not a skirt.
No.
It's tartan for a start, like the shirts of lumberjacks. And lumberjacks are hard. But what's the deal? Why do Scotsmen feel the need to wear skirts, kilts, at weddings?
Oh
and
yeah,
for every other
it's
given
sort of like the
excuse?
fancy outfit, right?
Why was it illegal? What do we wear underneath? And is it true they were invented by an Englishman?
No way.
Welcome to Scotland Unplugged and the story of the kilt. These are very kilted.
I think it's funny because I would have thought that Scotland being so cold, like, doesn't it get drafty? Like, I would have thought you kind of need pants, so why the need for skirts? Not skirts, kilts.
Century clan chief.
But still,
You
you're
can
kind of
see
like...
the illustrious history. Great men wearing the dress of their ancestors that harks back centuries. Well, not exactly. There was a bit of fashion involved. If you watch Braveheart, you'll see that everyone on the Scottish side, apart from some of the dastardly nobles, are wearing kilts. The truth is that Braveheart is a fantastically entertaining work of fiction, and one of the major bits of fiction is how they looked. William Wallace was the son of a knight from the Lowlands, and kilts were worn by manual workers from the Highlands, probably a good 300 years later. This is the philibeg. The mini kilt. The original kilt was the phillimore, or the great kilt, or sometimes the belted plaid. As the name suggests...
That one? Okay, hold on. This one's quite short. I think, like,
or the great...
Shouldn't it's supposed to be
kilt,
like...
or sometimes...
Yeah, I'm seeing like the men's knees. I think like maybe you shouldn't... It's like only like right at knee level. I think like this in particular, I think it's quite short.
The belted plaid. As the name suggests, it's pretty big. You can wrap it around you like a blanket and secure it with a belt. It can be...
Oh, so I guess it was practical because maybe if you were staying, you were like walking around and it's not as if they had like a sleeping bag. Probably they had tents. I don't know if they had tents actually, but it's easy because you kind of like wrap it around yourself and you just like, okay, it's a blanket and then like I'll lie in the ground and I'm covered. I would assume that's what they did. I don't know if that's the case.
Worn over the shoulder or as a hood or slip.
If it's raining. Oh, it is for sleeping. Okay.
What's wrong with trousers? Kilts first came into use amongst the Gaelic speakers of the Highlands and Islands. In these kinds of environments, trousers wouldn't have been the most practical things.
You had to move around?
They would have been pretty much useless until wellies were invented. It was much more useful to have something that stopped at knee.
Because of the mud. Okay, sure, yeah, trousers, pants, it's uncomfortable, I think, to move around. It doesn't give you freedom of movement. It's not as if they had leggings. And obviously, it's the mud, it's the dirt. It's like, it's a hassle.
Meaning you could get your feet as wet as you wanted. Before that, people would have worn robes. So you can see how it was a sort of a natural progression. If you want to learn more about the phillimore, I'll put a link in the description to Andy the Highlander putting one on. And though it might make me feel like Mary Quant, the philibeg is still a bit of a faff.
Wait, Mary Queen, like the miniskirt? What?
Check out the bonus video.
Okay, I have to like, hold on. I want to see how it puts it on. It's
the philibeg.
Okay, I think it's like a normal skirt. Again, I know that it's not a skirt.
And though it might make me feel like Mary Quant, the philibeg is...
But again, similar as in like you put it on like a skirt and then like there's a bunch of like ties.
Still a bit of a faff.
It looks hard actually. Like this doesn't seem that easy.
Check out the bonus video to see how it's done.
Oh, I love this. I love how he's dressed. This is like
so if the kilt was
CMC
worn
things,
by
right?
a pretty select subgroup of...
I don't think that you'll be walking around in Scotland just normally going around your day, something like this. No, this is like for weddings and special events, I would assume.
People, how on earth did it become national dress? I mean, if you go back to the painting at the beginning, it's like a couple of oligarchs rocking up to a photo shoot in overalls. I wouldn't rule it out given enough time, but this all has to do with romanticism, vanity, and the man who reshaped how we and the world see Scotland.
Like Robert Burns? Who? Like, I have no idea.
This is Sir Walter Scott.
Oh, okay.
This is his monument in the middle of Edinburgh. It's quite something. The kind of thing Victor Frankenstein might
it's a huge thing. Like, it's a huge monument.
But you have to shift yourself some paperbacks to get one of these.
Actually, it's quite lovely.
Walter Scott pretty much reimagined how we see Scotland today in his writing. Then he turbocharged it by reimagining how the king saw Scotland. Walter had polio as a child, so he was sent to live with his grandparents on their farm in the Borders. There he heard and grew to
like,
love
which borders? Like the Highlands? Where exactly did he? I am so confused. He was from, who knows?
ballads and folk tales of the area. As an adult,
I'm going to say Highlands.
he began to collect and rewrite a lot of these tales. Rob Roy McGregor, William Wallace and Robin Hood are all figures he repackaged.
Robin Hood was English, right? Oh my god, was he Scottish? All my life I've thought he was English.
This is George IV Bridge, named after the man himself. George IV came to the throne in 1820, following the death of his father, George III, the Mad One. Prior to that, he'd been Prince Regent, looking after things on his father's behalf. George 4.0 wasn't exactly what you'd call popular. He liked his food, he liked his drink, he especially liked his women. Here he is on a roundabout, on his very own street.
Oh, George Street.
He was deeply unpopular in London.
Kind of funny because it's just called George Street, and it would be like, which George? You've had like 3,000 George.
And partly due to the way he treated his wife, but he was a big fan of the work of our Walter. So George invited Walter for dinner.
So, like, not a great husband, maybe a great king. Who knows? I have no idea. But it's actually quite funny that they're... That's like, well, yeah, you know, he's remembered. Obviously, like, the wife maybe wasn't like that. How to put this? Maybe she didn't really like... She wasn't like, oh, let's like, honor this man. Probably not. But of course, like, for the country of Scotland, like, I don't know how they felt about this. But it's like, well, you know, it's our king, and this is, you know, this is what we have. This is what we have. So we have to like deal with them.
And Walter persuaded him that as King of Great Britain and King of Scotland, really he should visit. The last visit by a reigning monarch had been 170 years before.
That's crazy.
When Charles II visited briefly to get crowned. That's a bit of a gap. George
how do you go, like, I'm sorry, but how do you go more than 100 years without, like, visiting your said country, like, your said area of, like, I'm literally king of this? So I'm going to not visit. Well, it's like, I blame, like, all the monarchs, because obviously during 170 years. Like, that's quite a lot of time. So it was like a bunch of kings and monarchs that just decided for some reason, we're not going to visit technically my domain. Like, how are you expecting people to like you if back then, it's not as if they had like internet and stuff, like to know, oh, like, this is our king, this is our queen, like, we should, you know, we should like them. No, like, you if I don't know you, like, you don't really visit here. So it's like, you know, again, how are you supposed to like make people like you if you don't meet them, or if you don't at least like make the trip over there? It's seen as like, oh, that's good, like, we had a visit from the king.
Bavarian king. Prior to their dynasty taking the throne, the Stuarts had reigned for 300 odd years. Then they tried to take it back.
Actually, maybe that's the problem, right? Like, yeah, because they never visited and nobody really liked them because they didn't really know who they were, basically.
A few times. Most famously when Bonnie Prince Charlie had started his uprising in 1745. Following his defeat at the Battle of Culloden in 1746, the Highland identity was a problem. The Hanover side wanted to suppress it as much as possible.
Oh, and they have it's a memorial? Oh my god, that's cool.
The following year, the Act of Prescription was passed. The wearing of kilts and tartan was banned in most Highland counties, unless you were a clan chief, female, or in the British Army. And the punishment...
Oh, you could wear tartan. Oh yeah, because maybe they had like shawls and stuff. I understand why obviously they did it, because they wanted to Scottish identity, we better repress this. But I think I know it's kind of crazy that a piece of fabric, it's basically that important to the point that it's illegal. It's oh my god, okay.
Severe. 6 months in the big house for the first offence, and 7 years transportation if you were mental/patriotic enough to do it again.
That's crazy. 7 years for wearing a piece of fabric.
When it was finally allowed again, most people had lost interest.
Oh, they didn't really care anymore.
Romantics wore it in protest.
Probably it's who cares? I'm not willing to risk my life or 7 years of my life because I like wearing a kilt, wearing a tartan. It's not that important.
Now the Jacobites were no longer a threat. They were the underdogs. People started to identify with them.
You always look for the underdog.
Time moved on and Walter heard the tales and romanticised them even more and became a publishing phenomenon in his own right. Kilts took on a whole new identity.
I love that actually. It's like reclaiming
gentlemen's
it.
clubs where the rules stated firmly that they had to wear the garb of old Gaul. It was all a bit Walt Disney, but it served a purpose, an identity, a romantic ideal of the Highlands as this mythical, magical place. I mean, it
honestly, it just looks cool. Let's face it.
A mythical, magical place. But Lowlanders weren't convinced.
Lowlanders don't wear kilts. Is that what I'm getting? That's what I'm getting at.
A little bit barbarous. Well, a lot of them would. They'd been at war only a short time ago, but they'd never worn kilts.
Everyone's
or anything
at war.
Like that. So why should they start now? During his dinner, Walter flattered the Prince Regent, appealed to his ego, poured honey in his ear. He was, the writer said, as much of a Stuart as Bonnie Prince Charlie was. I mean, he could trace his ancestors back along the same line. European royals aren't known for their genetic diversity. George took the bait.
If you go back far enough, everyone's related. We all come from the same people, so...
And agreed to a visit. But only after his father had died and he'd been crowned. So on the 14th of August, 1822, the year he turned 60, he sailed north. He arrived by sea at Leith and stayed in Dalkeith Castle. During his visit, he wore a kilt, one that he'd had commissioned from George Hunter for the sum equivalent to £130,000 in today's money.
How much?
Slightly eye-watering. And
Wait, in today's money, it's what?
£1,000 in
Okay, what on earth did the kilt have? What? Is it made out of gold?
Today's money. Slightly eye-watering. And controversial. He had bloated legs, and so to hide them, he wore flesh-coloured stockings. And his kilt was a bit too short. He was parodied.
Okay, this is obviously they're making fun of him. Because he's too short. Oh my god. Well, great. At least in the good hand, you have great legs, so why not show them off? But I understand that you were the laughing stock of this. Everyone's making fun of you, you're the king, and I was what on earth is this man doing?
He's cartooned ruthlessly. When someone said it was a bit immodest, a Lady Hamilton Dalrymple supposedly said, "Since he's to be among us for so short a time, the more we see of him the better." None of it mattered. The crowds were massive. Walter Scott distributed leaflets telling everyone how to dress for the occasion, entitled "Hints addressed to the inhabitants of Edinburgh and others in prospects of His Majesty's visit by an old citizen." Fear of missing out left some high-up lowlanders scrambling around looking for a Highland ancestor or two who might give them the right to wear the kilt.
Okay, but hold on. I'm not getting are you supposed to have a Highlander ancestor, and this is it gives you access to the kilt? If you don't have any ancestor from the Highlands, then you couldn't really wear a kilt. This is that's weird. Shouldn't it be my right as a Scots person, like I'm Scottish, so I am allowed to wear the kilt. No, it's like only if you have a Highlander ancestor, which again, go back far enough and probably everyone had a Highlander ancestor or a Highland ancestor. So again, like what's the problem? Like who's going to check? It's like just tell them, yeah, my great grandfather like hail from the Highlands. Like who cares? No one's going to check that.
It's stuck.
Wear the
Like all
kilt.
things, names, customs, fashions, when people with influence start doing it, whether we like it or
Everyone wants
not,
to do it.
it soon filters down to the rest of us. Queen Victoria took on the tradition, dressing her own sons in kilts, etc. Tourism boomed.
Okay, exactly. Like, was it like Queen Victoria? She didn't really had any ancestors from the Highlands, but she had. It was her right because she's like, well, I'm literally the queen of this place, so I think I'm allowed to do that. Maybe it's different in her case because it was the royal family, and it's like we can do whatever we want to. We're the royal family.
But what about the mini kilt? Well, that could have been an invention of practicality. One story goes that a Thomas Rawlinson of Lancashire designed it along with an army tailor in Inverness. After the 1715 Jacobite rebellion, the government opened up the Highlands to exploitation. Rawlinson supposedly had charcoal production interests in the Highlands and wanted something his workers could wear that didn't get in the way. If you think about it, the Fillmore's practical for running around hills and sleeping rough, but not so much for hard manual labour in the heat. Then the army adopted it for similar reasons.
It's kind of fresh.
During the First World War, the Black Watch wore it as part of their uniforms and were so...
See, like, this is what I mean. Like, they have, like, this is, like, a longer thing compared to, like, I think the greater kilt that we just, in the painting. This was sort of, like, it hits at, like, knee level or just, like, a little beyond that. I'm seeing, like, one of the guys in the picture, they have, like, it's even, like, a little bit longer. I also assume, like, it depends. Like, sometimes it can be a little bit shorter. Sometimes it can be a little bit longer, depending on, like, on your legs, basically. Like, I don't know, like, how tall are you? I don't even know how tall are you. I think sometimes it's just, like, how much legs you have. Like, if you have short legs, then obviously the thing's gonna hit you, like, a little bit further than your knee. But if you have, like, really long legs, again, if you're maybe, like, the same height, that you're like, I'm more legs, then maybe like the thing's gonna hit you like, I don't know, beyond, like above knee level.
Feared,
basically.
They were nicknamed the Ladies from Hell. The Rawlinson story is based on a letter published in the Edinburgh Magazine in 1785.
I think it's crazy. I was like, they're making fun of it. Oh, it's a skirt, like they're wearing skirts. But it's very clearly, like, they look pretty masculine. Like, there's nothing about these people that makes me think, oh, they're ladies, they're women. No, it's like, they're pretty masculine. Like, you can tell. This
and
is like
some say that it was sent to discredit the wearing of traditional Highland dress by the regiments.
Possibly someone wanted it stopped.
Maybe they didn't have the legs for it. There has been quite a bit of debate about it down the years, though. We don't know who invented the mini kilt, but so many of our traditions come from outside Scotland. Bagpipes weren't invented here, but we're still stuck with them. Yes, the kilt was Highland dress before for about 200 years, but it's been national dress for 200 years since. I mean, before Walter came along, tartans weren't even based on your family name, but on where you came from. Tradition says that you should wear your mother's tartan or your father's tartan. There are all sorts of rules. How do you know which tartan belongs to them? Traditionally, it's workwear. So if you want to be really pedantic about it, maybe you should be accessorising it with a pair of goggles and some ear defenders, possibly an axe, possibly not in public. Traditions change, evolve,
absolutely, that's true.
And that's a good thing.
But what do you wear under your kilt?
Well, that's entirely up to you.
Yeah, what is it that, like, a real Scotsman doesn't wear anything beyond underneath the kilt? Is that what it is? It's like, well, but in one particular time period, I would assume that was the case because, again, probably underwear hadn't been invented. But yes, you know, I love this video. It's really, like, again, ultimately, nobody knows, like, so many things in history. It's like, do we know for certain we don't actually. So I love it. It's just more like, I don't know, who knows? Like nobody can tell for sure. I do love though that there was something, it's really, well, side note, I want to know who invented the bagpipes, because apparently like not a Scottish person invented this. So how come they're like saddled with it? How come it's something so Scottish if it wasn't invented there? And how come they just sort of like reclaimed it? I don't know. We'll love to know. But as for the actual sort of the kilt situation, I think it's really funny that a writer sort of came and was, he was like, you know what? I think we have to do something about like Scottish identity and how, again, I can tell why, and now I know like wow, he has a beautiful monument. I think it was in Edinburgh, yeah. It was in Edinburgh. I understand now why he has like such a beautiful, why he's so like important for Scottish people, and also like this huge beautiful monument. Like I can tell like why, like because again they probably have a lot of like famous writers in Scotland, but I can tell why like he sort of singled out as like the greatest. It's like it wasn't just specifically about like his writing, basically like all his pen basically. It's because everything he did as a sort of maybe a political figure. Can you call it political? I'm not sure, but well, ultimately it was political, and probably we did it with the intention of being political. The whole thing about like sort of infiltrating, although again it wasn't like he was this undercover spy, but the fact that he sort of became famous and then he was like, I don't know, charming to the king and being all like, hey, you know what you should do? Go visit Scotland. That's a political thing. Obviously, that was a decision that was taken because of it. It wasn't because, I think it would be cool if you visited. No, of course he did it with the whole, it's going to be good for my country. It's going to be good for everyone, like if the king comes. And it's also obviously going to be good for you as well, as the king, because these people, he obviously was aware of. I would imagine like people weren't like that happy because like I mentioned, if you have a supposedly this is our king, but we never really see them again. It's not as if we have like people were in the 21st century, in which like there's all online media, like you have the internet, so you're constantly seeing like what the monarchs are doing and what kind of work they're doing, like what kind of places they're visiting. You're seeing them like work basically, work. Yes, it is however you want to put it. It's still they're investing their time in doing things, but still like you'll see them like they're traveling, they're like doing stuff. So of course back then if people, again, if you live in this huge place, it's not just like you're king of like the very small country, like you have so many things under your domain that it's kind of like a little bit hard, I think, to like I can split myself and be like in being three separate places at the same time. Which, yes, but you have to put the effort, as in I have to go and visit, the places. I have to let myself, be seen. I have to, like, people have to know me. Because they probably, like, they know you by name, as in, like, in the same way that people, again, as, like, a president. A lot of people, they're like, oh, who's the president of your own country? Like, of course, people are going to be like, oh, this is the president. But yeah, you actually see them. Like, you have to see them, doing stuff. Like, they're doing, I don't know, political rallies. They're visiting stuff. Even though, again, a president, it's a little bit different from a monarch because obviously their daily, like their work, it's sort of done, again, you see them at an office. A monarch, it's something different. But way back in those days, again, you kind of have to let yourself be seen because people have to see that you're basically working, that you care about, your own country, that you care about the people. They never see you and they just sort of know you by name. Oh, I think his name is like George V. I don't know. I've never seen him because he's never come around here. Then how are you expecting people to like you? And this is, again, very specific to like monarchs, especially like around that time period, although still maybe a little bit. This can still apply, I think, to monarchs in this day and age. Like they have to be well liked, basically. They are at the service of the people. So, again, they have to like you have to put in the work. And by put in the work, like you have to let yourself be seen and doing things. And you have to like talk to people, I don't know, like see and highlight like causes and stuff like that. But still, back in those days, it was more or less the same thing that we have, in this day and age. But my point is that people have to like know you, and in order for them to like know you, you have to like at least visit at some point. It's not as if 60 years went by and no monarch has visited us. Of course you're gonna feel abandoned. You're gonna feel as if you're not really a part of this, because if like no one comes to visit you and you don't really see them, like you're technically a separate entity basically from what's happening in the other country. So I think it's like great. And obviously this writer obviously he realized this. He was like, no, I think you have to visit, you have to change like the perspective of both Scottish people that they have, like, of the monarchs and of the King of England and all of that, and for you maybe to like actually experience as well like how Scottish culture and what's Scottish culture like, because they mentioned at some point that Scottish, like it was like the lowlanders, people from the lowlands. And I think I've never heard of that, lowlanders specifically like referring to the Highlanders like that. I've heard of like English people referring to like Scottish people as in, oh, they were barbarians. Obviously not in this day and age, but way back in the day, if they were like this really like, oh, it's like the Wild Wild West there. Obviously they weren't using like this specific term of like the Wild Wild West, but still it was like this lawless land and everyone was crazy, and there's like no laws, they're barbarians, they're very aggressive. And it wasn't really, again, it was like the perspective that they had. It was like, oh, they live like a very wild life over there, we're civilized and they're not. So in order for them to sort of like spread the culture around, to be like, no, this isn't like really what we are. Do you think we're just like running around like wild dogs? No, of course not. Not, maybe there's a little bit of a wilderness aspect to this, I don't know, but still, like for the most part, it wasn't like they're like, oh, no civilization, like people are just crazy. Of course not. So it was sort of like the stereotype that people had about Scottish people way back then. And this, I think, helped change. This visit sort of helped change probably the perspective of like everyone around. Like, it's like, no, they're not crazy barbarians. They're just like normal people. And for the Scottish people, it's like, yes, our culture is being spread. People are getting to know us. And of course, the king also shows interest on behalf of the crown that we also matter. So I think it's like really, really important. And it's crazy that how this other, again, this huge political thing, how important of a role it played, the kilt, which is like, it's just, again, it's a piece of fabric. And I know that, for a Scottish person, probably that's the thing. It's not just a piece of fabric, although maybe in a way it is, in the same way as, I don't know, a flag is. Like, what is a flag? A flag is just a piece of fabric, but it represents a lot. So in the same way, I think like kilts are in the same way. It's just a piece of fabric, but what it represents, like, this is what matters, right? It's just, I know that there's several of them, like the different tartan types. He mentioned something that I didn't really know, like, apparently you're supposed to wear like your mother's or your father's tartan, or you're allowed, right? Like, I have like equal 50% rights to each one of them. Like, you wear either your grandmother's or your grandfather's. Well, the further it goes, you have like 4 to choose, like, your all your grandparents, and then you start like your great grandparents, so you have like 8 to choose from. I don't know, like, if you go beyond that, you're going to have a lot of things to choose from. Although maybe not, maybe they all hail from, like, again, go back far enough, we all kind of hail from the same people. So ultimately it's kind of like, oh, you only have access to like 4 or 6, I don't know. But it's funny that it's apparently like, it's really like, it belongs to like a family, or like he said, apparently in this day and age, it's like each family, each clan maybe. I'm very confused about the whole thing. Like, do all Scottish people technically belong to a clan? It's a clan something separate. I thought it was because of your last name, but maybe like not necessarily because your name is, I don't know, MacDougall. I don't know if I just invented that. Maybe like you don't necessarily belong to the MacDougall clan. I don't know, who knows? You would have to like trace it back and be like, oh yeah, one of my ancestors like belonged to this clan, and then I am allowed to like enter the clan. I have no idea how the thing works. I think it's just like a very confusing thing. And of course, you getting the tartan of it all, and it gets even more confusing. It's like, then how many tartans they are? Can I just create my own tartan? Like, I'm creating my own line? No, probably no, because you didn't you didn't come from, you just didn't appear. You come from something else, so you just can't sort of like, I'm going to denounce the previous tartan and I'm going to create my own. Probably not a thing that's done, because again, you kind of have to use like your family's ones. I don't know. I'm very confused about the whole thing. But I again, like, maybe like I can't believe like people are not just creating like new tartans to put on their kilts. I don't know, maybe, or maybe not. Like, that's the thing. Like, you can't really create new ones. The ones in existence are already there. Like, who knows? And also the whole before, apparently, like it has something to do with where your family came from or where you came from. So it's not necessarily about like belonging to a clan or to like necessarily like it belongs to you because that last name it was one of your ancestors, so technically like you could use it. It was more about like if you hail from, I don't know, Inverness, then you have to wear the one from Inverness. What happens if you move, like, or I don't know, or maybe like you have kids somewhere else, and then like, do they have to wear another type of tartan in their kilt, and then you have to wear like what happens to women if they, if you marry, like, do you have access to your husband's tartan? I don't know. It's the whole world out there. I would love to know because it sounds very interesting. But I also want to know if right now in this day and age, they must have, because for one, I see it, I'm like, oh yeah, it's tartan, but I know that it's again, it's a whole other world out there, and people that know about these things, and probably like Scottish people in general, they're more aware of like recognizing the little like nuances and differences between like the different types of tartan. To me, they all look quite similar. They all look the same. It's sort of like, oh, one is like more green, the other is more red. I don't know. It's like they all have similar colors. But of course for them, because the design, like how different can the design be in order to like, no, this one's from, the clan, whatever, this is from the others. But they know, of course, there's gotta be like smaller details that really do differentiate like which one belongs to who and how many of them there are. I have no idea, but it's crazy that they're all so different that people can tell, no, this is from this and this is from the other. But also, if I want to like commission a tartan, where do I go? I mean, I guess I can like buy it. Obviously, there's gotta be stores that sell this. But what happens if I want one specifically, like from one specific clan or for one specific place? Can I commission one of those? Do I have to like get a tailor, and do they just know? Do they look it up online? Do they have a catalog of, just like look for the catalog, and then they have the different types of tartans that belong to like each family? Again, are you allowed to even do that if you don't prove like, no, I swear, like this is my clan. Can you not, if you are like an outsider, do you have like another type of like tartan in your kilt? The sort of like the generic one and not necessarily the one that belongs to someone. I don't know, so many questions. And also, can you wear this? Because again, I understand that it was like in this day and age, I mean, you can do whatever, like it's your life. But do they, because how it has evolved, and obviously how important the kilt has been historically, and how loaded it was, it was forbidden, and now it's a symbol, and obviously it's so lovely, it's great, and I understand why people wear them, especially at like weddings, or I don't know, maybe like graduations, maybe, I don't know, like important fancy events, is like, yeah, I'm wearing my kilt, because again, it's a symbol of resistance in a way, which I love, yes, lovely. But on the other hand, can I feasibly like wear this? Just like I'm running some errands. Can I just wear a kilt, or is that seen as really weird? Obviously, you're not putting like the blazer, and can women wear kilts? Actually, it just dawned on me. Maybe like women cannot wear kilts, or maybe they can. I don't know. But again, whatever it is the case, can you just wear it like with a t-shirt and like, I don't know, sneakers or like boots or something? But again, my point is that you're not going somewhere specifically like fancy or anything. I don't have an event. I'm just like running errands. Can you go like with your tartan, with your kilt, or people are gonna look at you weird in the street and be like, hey, what are you doing? Like, you're supposed to use this, it's like it's the equivalent of like going out in a tuxedo to, I don't know, to the bank. It's like, why are you wearing a tuxedo to the bank? I mean, technically you could, like no one's really, there are no laws against this, but it would be seen as weird. So I want to know, like in Scotland, is that the same? Is seen as weird, or can you just walk around, around Edinburgh, and people are gonna be walking around in their kilts, and it's gonna be like, oh, it's fine, like it's normal? I would assume no, but I don't know. I would love to know, because again, very, very interested in that. And that was it for today, and I'll see you next time. Bye!